We're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 65 of the FilmBrony Podcast. As promised, we are back for another episode. I am, of course, Nick Canino, the guy in charge of the podcast, and with me, as always, I have a guest. I have a guest with me who created the whole podcast. So, introduce yourself.
Hi, Søren and FilmBrony. Happy Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate this time of year.
Yes. Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. Tonight's gonna be just a simple podcast. We're just gonna go over our usual movie reviews from late October to the first 2 weeks of November, and then we for the first time in a while we're gonna be presenting our dog and pick in the show. Except our dog is gonna be the Christmas edition, while our pick is gonna pay a tribute to a really good director who unfortunately was murdered. Murdered, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, stay tuned. But yeah, hope you guys are in for a treat. You guys are in for a treat with this one. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with our usual with how we usually start our podcast, and that is the Blu-ray showcase.
Right. Hush,
Mike Flanagan,
Joyride,
nice, really good film.
The Long Walk.
It's on my Christmas list.
Hey, Quentin, I love you, but I don't know what you're saying because Love and Mercy.
Yeah, it's just I don't get what Quentin Tarantino was even saying about Paul Dano. He's a really good actor.
Yeah. Mr. and Mrs. Smith and The Devil Wears Prada.
Love and Mercy made my 2015 best of list, by the way.
Place Beyond the Pines.
Great film.
Pompoko.
Nice.
And last but not least, Weapons.
Great film. One of my favorites of this year. Alright, so I only have 4 Blu-rays with me this week and for this podcast, and I might as well present them right now. Drive.
Great film.
It is one of the best of 2011. Next up, one of the best of 2013, and unfortunately, the last great movie he did, Woody Allen's Blue Jasmine.
Yeah, real shame that he fell off as hard as he did.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I did like Cafe Society. I did like Magic in the Moonlight, and I really enjoyed the hell out of Cafe Society, but unfortunately, that's about the only things he did that I liked. Next up, one of my favorite films of 2013, joining in with Blue Jasmine, Dallas Buyers Club.
Another great film.
It is. And finally, Denis Villeneuve's Sicario, one of my favorite movies of 2015.
Same here.
All right. Well, it's time we get to the reviews. I know we were supposed to do all the October films from the last podcast, but due to the work schedule, I due to the fact that I had to go to work, we had to like stop at Blue Moon. But now we're gonna finally wrap up October with the last 5 films we have, starting with Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere.
Ah, boy, it's yet another boring and by-the-numbers musician biopic. So I acted and the music scenes are good, but they're few and far between. It's mostly just Bruce Springsteen exploring his depressing life and going through the usual biopic cliches you'll see coming from a mile away, coupled with shitty childhood and marriage. I can't even recommend this to hardcore Springsteen fans or fans of the genre, as there's not really much of him performing music in this movie. So it's one of the biggest cases of Oscar bait this year, sealed mediocrity.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Although I would say the film was just okay overall. Scott Cooper's directing was solid. The acting was very good. Jeremy Allen White delivers an Oscar caliber performances for Springsteen. Jeremy Strong was also fantastic as John Landau, Bruce Springsteen's manager, while Paul Walter Hauser, Stephen Graham, and uh, Odessa Young are also very good in the film as well. It's got an excellent soundtrack, terrific cinematography. The production values and costume design are both very good since they do make you feel like you're back in the early 1980s. And the concert scenes are by far the best thing about the film, especially with how they were directed, acted, and shot. Unfortunately, this movie was super underwhelming. The story was all over the place, especially since it tried too hard, packing a lot of things into one film. Involving his trouble involving his childhood, involving a hard childhood with his troubled father, as well as a romance subplot that feels so undercooked and unnecessary, rather than focusing on the main story being the making of his Nebraska album and the personal struggles he had. And while Scott Cooper does a solid job with the way he directed the film, I did feel the screenplay was an over. I did feel though his screenplay was an overwritten mess, mainly through its dialogue. The editing was a muddled mess. The pacing was a meandering mess. It's also filled with cliches that you've seen in other films before, and the ending was super underwhelming. Overall, while Jeremy Allen White delivers a brilliant performance as Bruce Springsteen, and the film is well made and well intentioned, I unfortunately found Springsteen delivered me from evil. I mean, delivered me from nowhere. Sorry. To be an unremarkable, cliched, and dull biopic that doesn't really teach us all that much involving Bruce Springsteen's personal struggles, as well as the making of the Nebraska album. 5 out of 10 or a C plus. I really wanted to love this film, but in the end, yeah, the film was just you could tell this was clearly made just to get an Oscar nomination. In other words, it's Oscar bait.
Really, the only nomination I can see is Jeremy Allen White, but that's it.
Yeah,
Maybe sound.
yeah. And to answer your question, my favorite animated movie I've seen this decade so far is The Wild Robot.
Probably Pinocchio. The
Yeah.
speaking
Next
of
up,
which, speaking of
anyway,
which, oh,
I'm actually going to talk about the next film before we talk about the other one. Next up, I have Regretting You. Yeah, Regretting You. It's if you don't know what Regretting You is, it's based on the novel. It's based on a novel of the same name by the same author that did It Ends With Us. Yeah, we all know how that turned out. And basically, it's involving Morgan Grant and her daughter Clara, whom after a devastating accident reveals a shocking betrayal, they explore what's left behind as they confront family secrets, redefine love, and rediscover each other. I was not looking forward to this film going in. I mean, looking back on my 2024 list, my worst films of 2024 list, it ends with us should have been on my worst films of 2024 list. I don't know why I gave this a 4.5 out of 10 when it really should have been a 3 out of 10. Worst of all, I knew I was in trouble when I found out that. Well, take a look at who. When I found out that this was written by Susan McMartin, and guess you're not gonna believe what she also wrote. What she also wrote here. Let me. You're not gonna believe what she also wrote. Look at this. Yup.
the Die of 50 Shades of Grey itself, which isn't saying much.
Yeah, really. So I knew I was in trouble going in. I knew I was in trouble going in. And after seeing this movie, all I could say is it's boring, generic, and cliche, but not one of the worst romance movies I've ever seen. Surprisingly enough. Why is that? Well, for starters, the acting was solid. McKenna Grace was very good as Clara Grant, and I was also very surprised by how good Mason Thames was as Miller Adams. And he and McKenna Grace actually delivered some good chemistry in the film. Allison Williams, Dave Franco, Willa Fitzgerald, Scott Eastwood, and Clancy Brown, although he and Eastwood are not in it that much, also turn in some solid performances as well. And on top of the film having a solid soundtrack, the cinematography was very good as well. Unfortunately, that's where my positives for the film end. The story felt generic and predictable. The screenplay was unbelievably terrible, especially since not only are most of the characters poorly developed, and the dialogue feeling so clunky to the point where you would hear it in either a Lifetime or a Hallmark original movie. But it doesn't say all that much with its themes involving grief, betrayal, and trying to move on. Josh Boone really tries his best, but his directing couldn't save it due to it being saddled with such a garbage script. It's clumsily edited, the pacing was a meandering mess, it's filled with cliches that you've seen in other romance films before, and the ending was too predictable and too sappy. Overall, while nowhere near one of the worst romance films I've ever seen, Regretting You is a bland, generic, and cliche romance drama based on Colleen Hoover's novel that bored me to no end. Yeah, it's bad, but I've seen worse. 3 out of 10.
Next, we have Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and much like 2022's Pinocchio, this has been on the backbone of his mind for decades until Netflix finally gave him a proper funding, and it was more than worth it. This maintains the novel's themes about humanity while also giving it its unique Del Toro flair with the production values and music. Stellar performances all around, from Oscar Isaac to Mia Goth to especially Jacob Elordi as the creature who
Jacob Elordi.
Jacob Elordi, thank you. Who might be tied with a certain other actor we'll get to as my pick for a supporting actor this year. So go seek out one of the most unique and best films of the year, Seal Cinema.
I absolutely love this film. This is one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. Frankenstein isn't just a faithful adaptation of Mary Shelley's novel the same name. It's also a powerful and exhilarating gothic sci-fi film that blew me away. And it shows why Guillermo del Toro is one of the finest filmmakers working today. I was highly invested in the story due to how well structured and gripping it felt. Guillermo del Toro's directing was fantastic, and the same could be said for a screenplay, especially with not only how well written the dialogue felt and how terrific the characterization felt. Um, but it also does a brilliant job exploring its themes involving the cycles of trauma, pride, and the consequences of unchecked ambition and greed. The acting was terrific. Oscar Isaac delivers one of his most powerful performances yet as Victor Frankenstein. Jacob Elordi blew me away as the creature. He was so good as the monster that I would argue that this is one of the best supporting performances I've seen this entire year. Mia Goth and Christoph Waltz are also brilliant in the film as well. The musical score composed by Alexandre Desplat is one of the best I've heard in a movie this entire year. Dan Laustin's cinematography was outstanding and one of the best I've seen this entire year. It's got great editing. It's very well paced throughout its 150-minute runtime. The gothic atmosphere works, especially with how haunting it felt. And despite it being more of a gothic science fiction, there were some suspenseful horror elements that the film showed that actually had me on the edge of my seat while also gasping. The production values and costume design are both spectacular since they do make you feel like you're back in the 19th century. The practical effects and the CGI visual effects are both brilliant, and it also has one of the most moving endings I've seen this entire year. Yeah, overall, not only is Frankenstein such a faithful adaptation of Mary Shelley's novel the same name, but it's also one of Guillermo del Toro's best movies and one of the most powerful and exhilarating films I've seen this entire year. And it's easily one of the year's best films. Yep. And as you guessed it, it is a 10 out of 10 or an 8. Oh, wait, hold on. Uh-oh. Oh, wait, there we go. Yeah, as you guessed it, It is a 10 out of 10 or an A plus. Well done, Guillermo del Toro. Well done. Well done. Guys, if you have Netflix, check this one out. It's one of the year's best films. Well done, Guillermo del Toro. Well done.
Next up, Bugonia, and Yorgo Lanthimos' latest film has a unique, intriguing premise about these conspiracy theorists capturing the CEO, thinking she's part of an alien race bent on destroying mankind. Stand-up performances from Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone, and it has its distinct Yorgos look and feel with the cinematography and music. However, slowly I came to realize that most of the movie is just the same formula. Emma Stone and conspiracies got on each other's nerves on the whole alien bullshit. And I particularly wasn't keen on the ending as it went against what the movie was going for. So fans of Yorgos will get something out of it. Others may want to think twice before seeing it. So seal of accuracy.
To me, I have to disagree with you on that because I really love this movie. Not only does Bugonia work as a social commentary that exposes and critiques the nature of capitalism, greed, and conspiracy theories, but it also works as a twisted yet hilarious, absorbing, and mesmerizing and poignant portrait involving the dangers of alienation and control and the search for meaning in a chaotic world that had me invested from beginning to end. And this is one of those movies where after you see it, it stays with you while also making you wonder, is humanity failing and are we to blame for this? And between this, The Lobster, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Favorite, and Poor Things, it shows on why I feel Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the finest filmmakers in the film industry today. I was highly invested in this story due to how well structured and gripping it felt. Yorgos Lanthimos once again does an excellent job with the way he directed the film, and the screenplay that Will Tracy wrote for the film was also brilliant. And that's all. That's not only thanks to its witty and well-written dialogue, excellent characterization, as well as balancing its thriller and black comedic tone successfully, but how it had a lot to say when it came to its social commentary, where it exposes the nature of capitalist greed as well as conspiracy theories, while also doing a wonderful job exploring its themes involving the dangers of control and alienation and the search for meaning in a chaotic world, as I stated earlier. The acting was absolutely terrific. Emma Stone delivers one of her finest performances yet as Michelle Fuller, and the same could be said for Jesse Plemons as Teddy Gatz. Teddy Gatz. Their performances were so good that I feel they should be up for Oscar consideration. And Delpis also delivers such a brilliant breakthrough performance as Teddy's cousin Don. The musical score is absolutely one of the most powerful scores I've heard in the film this entire year. The cinematography in Bugonia is absolutely one of the best I've seen this entire year. The choice they made with the aspect ratio, as well as shooting it with Vista Vision cameras, are the main reason. Sorry about that. Um. Anyway, the choice they made with the aspect ratio, as well as shooting it with Vista Vision cameras, are the main reason why Bugonia has such gorgeous cinematography. Um, it's deliberately paced throughout. The production design was excellent. There were also some chilling and suspenseful moments the film showed that had me on the edge of my seat throughout. And when it came to the film's comedy, it worked because of how twisted and absurd, yet witty and clever it felt, especially when it came to again, satirizing the nature of capitalist greed and conspiracy theories. And while people will be divided on the film's ending, I actually love Begonia's ending. Not only was it shocking and dark, but it was also deeply moving and very funny. Um, my only two small gripes I have with the film is that there were some very jarring editing choices made in the black and white scenes where it cuts to black so many times that immediately got repetitive real fast, and I and I admittedly did find the twist pretty obvious, but that's really it. Overall, Bugonia features two Oscar caliber performances by Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, and it is one of the most twisted yet absorbing and mesmerizing films I've seen this entire year. And it is absolutely one of the best movies I've seen in 2025. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. If you're a huge Yorgos Lanthimos fan, check it out.
Next up, we have Shelby Oaks, and this movie's been hyped up as former movie critic Chris Stuckman's directorial debut, especially with Mike Flanagan executive producing it. The final result turned out to be a mess. The first two acts had a ton of promise with its intriguing mystery and fun mix of genres, and solid performances with Camille Sullivan giving it her all, and there's some solid cinematography, production values, and music. However, it can be a bit slow at times, and certain metaphors are about as stellar as a bulldozer, especially with whatever the hell that ending was. So, if you're a fan of horror and want to see how Stuffman does as a director, give it a one-time watch, but don't expect a masterpiece or even that great of a film. Seal of accuracy.
Yeah, overall, I thought it was fine. For his first time directing, I thought Chris Stuckman did a very good job. Did a very good job, especially since you could see the vision and passion he had behind the camera. The acting was very good, especially from Camille Sullivan, who was absolutely brilliant, and that's due to how much emotional weight she brought to her performance. The score was very good, especially by the Newton brothers. It's got great cinematography, and the horror elements in the film actually work because of how there's real tension, suspense throughout that had me gasping while also on the edge of my seat, and the scares were also very well crafted. It's got excellent use of practical effects and brilliant sound design. However, there is a reason why I can't call Shelby Oaks a great horror film. Although intriguing, I did admittedly find the story to be a bit cliched and predictable. And while Chris Stuckman does a very good job with the way he directed the film, I did feel that his screenplay could have used some improvement, especially since the dialogue did feel a bit clunky at times. The pacing was a bit all over the place. There were some editing choices that did feel uneven at times, and it also has its share of cliches in it, especially if you've seen some films. If you've seen some films that, like the Blair Witch Project and Hereditary, um, you know exactly how it turns out in this, and the ending did admittedly feel rushed and abrupt. Overall, Shelby Oaks is nowhere near one of the best horror movies I've ever seen, since it does have its share of cliches in it. But for a small indie horror film being his directorial debut, I thought it was a decent horror movie that shows Chris Stockman definitely has some potential as a filmmaker. This is one of those movies where you need to see it for yourself in order to judge your own opinion on. Despite me not liking his YouTube channel nowadays, I am rooting for him as a filmmaker, and I am curious to see what his next film will be on. So, 6 out of 10 or a B minus.
Next up is Nuevo Vague, and Richard Linklater's second film this
Nouvelle Vague.
Nouvelle Vague, thank you. Richard Linklater's second film this year sees him tackle the making of arguably one of France's most influential films, Breathless. And besides solid performances and writing, this really feels like a French film from the 60s, from the cinematography to the overall presentation. But like Blue Moon, it does suffer from some pacing issues here and there, but it's otherwise a great tribute to a lost era filmmaking, which I'm giving the seal of approval.
This is one of the better movies I've seen this year. It's not hard to see why Richard Linklater wanted to direct this movie, because not only is the Nouvelle Vague a great homage to the 1916 French film Breathless, but it was also a witty and entertaining love letter to French New Wave cinema that people who love film will enjoy from beginning to end. And like it was just an accident, I also saw this at the Chicago Film Festival, too. I was highly invested in the story due to how well structured and engaging it felt. Richard Linklater's directing is once again excellent. The screenplay was also very good, especially with how witty and well written the dialogue felt. The acting was terrific, especially from Zoe Deutsch, who absolutely delivers such a magnificent performance as Jean Seberg. Sorry if I mispronounced that. It's got a great soundtrack. The cinematography was absolutely beautiful and one of the best I've seen this entire year. especially with the way they shot it in black and white. The editing was solid. The production values and costume design are both terrific, since not only does it make you feel like you're back in 1959, but it also makes you feel like you're watching a movie made in that year as well. There are some moments of dry humor added to the mix, which I did like very much, and the ending was very satisfying as well. Now, with that being said, I still prefer Blue Moon more, since my only issue I did have with the film were that it does have its share of pacing issues in some spots, especially when there were scenes that, while understandable why they were there, did drag did drag the film down a bit. But that's really it. Overall, I found New Vague to be a witty, entertaining homage and love letter to French New Wave cinema that I not only enjoyed watching, but also made me realize why I love Richard Linklater as a filmmaker and why I love film in general. And because of that, this is one of the better movies I've seen this entire year. 9 out of 10, or an A minus. I really enjoyed this movie a lot, and once again, if you have Netflix and you love Richard Linklater, give this one a watch. It's really good.
Next up, Die My Love. And okay, stop me if you heard this story a million times. A couple who seemingly has everything going for them slowly slips into madness. Because every other movie before. It stars Jennifer Lawrence as a wife who loses her mind with her husband in their home, because Darren Aronofsky's mother. Her husband is Robert Pattinson, who stays in this secluded facility dealing with a sudden death of an animal, because a lighthouse. All right, perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe Lynn Ramsey has anything new to say about it now. There's nothing new this movie adds to this topic. What this movie does have: actors who are mostly wasted, as well as a J-Law performance that's trying way too hard to win another Oscar. Pacing that's either slow as molasses or completely rushed. Editing that's all over the place and cuts right in the middle of the certain scenes, as well as an ending that's just nothing. All adding up to one of the most trite, pretentious, boring, and misguided films of the year, which I'm giving the seal disapproval.
This is where I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this, Soren. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this. Yeah, it does fall a bit short from being one of Lynn Ramsey's best movies, since there are some pacing issues here and there. There were some editing choices made in the film that did come across as being uneven at times, and the ending, while I appreciate it for being batshit insane, did feel underwhelmingly abrupt. But despite that, I really like this movie. I was surprised with how much I was invested in the story, and that's mainly due to how well structured and absorbing it felt. Lynn Ramsey's directing was brilliant, and her screenplay that she wrote for the film was very good. Not only thanks to its sharp dialogue as well as the characters feeling fleshed out and real, but how it also had a lot to say with its themes involving the struggles of motherhood, mental illness, isolation, and troubled relationships. The acting was terrific. I have to disagree with you on Jennifer Lawrence, Soren. I thought she absolutely delivered one of her finest performances yet as Grace, and that states to how raw and powerful it felt. Robert Pattinson, Sissy Spacek, Lakeith Stanfield, and Nick Nolte, although Stanfield and Nolte are not in it that much, also deliver excellent performances too. It's got an awesome soundtrack. The cinematography was fantastic, and there are some real tension-filled moments the film shows that, especially in the second half, that actually had me gasping and on the edge of my seat throughout. So overall, although it falls short from although it falls a bit short from being one of Lynn Ramsey's best movies, I nevertheless found Die My Love to be a disturbing yet intriguing, gripping, absorbing, and unpredictable psychological character study on the struggles of motherhood, mental illness, isolation, and troubled relationships, featuring Jennifer Lawrence in one of her best performances yet. So I really like this film, and look, I do understand why people will be divided on this. I mean, the way it's structured and some of the decisions Jennifer Lawrence's character makes, as well as the slow burn pace, will test some, will test some, will test some people's patience. So don't come to me and think I'm crazy for liking this movie, all because I appreciate films that are unpredictable. That that's why I found I found Die My Love to be a really good movie because I didn't know where it was going. So it's not great. It's not one of the best movies I've seen this year, but for what I saw with it, I thought it was a very good film. So 8 out of 10 or a B plus. Again, not one of the best I've seen this year, but I really enjoyed this movie.
Next up, Predator Badlands, and ever since Disney and then Trachtenberg took over the franchise, it's gotten a bit of a renaissance with Prey and Kill of Killers. While it's safe to say this movie continues that track record, it's definitely the weakest of this era as it felt rather Disneyfied, quote unquote. Not necessarily in terms of the PG-13 rating, as it gets away with a lot, but rather in terms of the story. Like, an outcast tries to prove himself alone, only to discover the power of friendship that saves the day. Then the tone can be a bit comedic for some, especially with Ella Fanning's character. Regardless, the story, well cliched, is an engaging one. Solid visual sound effects, and there's some fun action set pieces leading up to a satisfying finale. While it's not the strongest Predator entry, it's still a satisfying one for fans of the franchise, seal of approval.
I really loved this movie. In fact, I was surprised with how much I really loved this one. In fact, I'm gonna. In fact, I know you're gonna disagree with me with this, Soren, and I didn't see either Prey or Killer of Killers. I don't know how you say that, but it was the animated Predator film that came out back in June.
Yeah, Kill of Killers.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't see any of those, but for Predator Badlands, this is honestly my this is honestly the best sequel, the best Predator sequel I've seen so far. Um, I was invested in the story due to how gripping and engaging it felt. It's very well directed by Dan Trachtenberg. The screenplay was very good, and that's not only due to solid dialogue and most of the characters feeling well developed, but how it does a great job balancing its sci-fi action and survival tones very well. The acting was terrific. The actor that played Deck, I don't want to butcher this guy's name, so let me just put his name right here. Give me a second. Give me a second. Ah, crap. Hold on. All right. Let me put his name right here. There we go. He's the guy that played Deck. He was really brilliant. He was brilliant. And Al Fanning also delivers such a fantastic performance as the dual role of 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 Thea and her sister Tessa, respectively. The score was excellent. The cinematography was brilliant. The editing was solid. It's very well paced throughout. The action sequences were a lot of fun to watch, especially with how they were choreographed, shot, edited, and directed. It's got very convinced. The CGI effects were both very convincing and very well done. Outstanding creature designs and a very satisfying ending that makes me want to see more of this. Now, although I was a little worried about the PG-13 rating, I can understand why it was at this one actually made more sense of why this actually got the PG-13 rating. Now, am I demanding more Predator movies to be PG-13? Hell no. But I don't care what rating it is, as long as as it's a great film. And Predator Badlands is definitely that film. Now, with all that being said, I did have one issue with the film. One issue. Not all the humor in Predator Badlands worked. especially since there were some moments of cutesy Marvel-esque humor, and that's including some lines of dialogue said by Elle Fanny's character in one scene, as well as two scenes involving the little monster creature that did drag the film down a bit. But that's really it. Not so overall, not only is Predator Badlands my favorite of the Predator sequels so far, but it's also one of the most gripping, entertaining, and exhilarating sci-fi action films I've ever seen. And it's one of my favorite movies I've seen this entire year. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. I really enjoyed this movie a lot. Next up, I have is Christie. And Christie, and so here's what Christie's about. Christie starring Sydney Sweeney. Based on true events, Christie chronicles the life, successful career, and the struggles of Christy Salters Martin, the most successful female boxer of the 1990s. I saw the trailer for this a couple times at a couple of my showings, and I was interested in checking this out. Knowing that it was a boxing movie and Sydney Sweeney was in it. And here's what I'll say about the film: it is very well directed. The acting was terrific. Sydney Sweeney gives out what is quite possibly her best performance yet as Christy Salters Martin. Ben Foster gives out one of his best performances yet as the terrible piece of shit named James V. Martin. You hate him because of what he does to Christy in the film, but his performance is so powerful that this is one of those characters you love to hate. And the same could be said with Marriott Weaver, who was brilliant as the menacing mother named Joyce Salters. Again, her performance was brilliant. That this is one of those characters you love to hate. It's got a great soundtrack, excellent cinematography. The boxing sequences are fantastic, especially with how they were choreographed, shot, edited, and directed. And there were some gritty and suspenseful moments shown in the film that actually caught me off guard and had me gasping. Now, here's why I don't think. Here's why it falls short from being a great biopic. The story, unfortunately, didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would, since it doesn't teach me all that much about Christy Salters Martin other than her boxing career and her troubled marriage. The screenplay, like, really was a mess, especially since some of the dialogue did feel clunky at times, and the tone felt incoherent at times as well. It's clumsily edited, the pacing was a meandering mess, and it does have its share of cliches you've seen in other films that are based on true stories before. Overall, Christie is unfortunately cliched, uneven, and messy when it came to the way it's structured in terms of its narrative. But Sydney Sweeney's powerful performance as Christy Salters Martin does make this film worth checking out. So 6 out of 10 or B minus or B minus.
Next up, we have Nuremberg, and I wasn't kidding in my short review that I felt this movie was pure Oscar bait. I mean, you take a historical topic that everyone knows, you take recognizable actors who are admittedly trying their best, but are clearly stunt casted, like Rami Malek and Michael Shannon playing themselves, and Russell Crowe as a German. Again, they're nowhere near bad, but they seem typecasted. You got certain scenes and lines from range from effective enough to so cliche yet overly serious. The overbearing soundtrack, people running through the rain to reach a house to deliver important exposition, dramatic camera flashes, the dramatic title drop that was clearly shot for the trailer, the dramatic stomping straight out of Oppenheimer, and so on and so forth. And to be honest, at times I was kind of fascinated at how inept it all was as an Oscar film. But other times I was kind of bored due to how little this actually says about the historical period that other and better films have said already. And this movie rushes through the actual Nuremberg trials and has so rushed of an ending that I was like, that's it? That's how it ends? So admittedly, I almost recommend this movie as sort of a movie that so fails at Oscar bait that is unintentionally entertaining. But similar to how Doug Walker said about Eternals, it's more of a subtle so bad it's good film than something like The Room or Birdemic. And since I feel like most people are going into this movie expecting a genuine historical drama, I'll have to be objective and give this a sealed mediocrity.
I thought it was for me. I thought it was solid, but not great. Yes, the script did the script the script did feature some clunky dialogue and how it relies a bit much on exposition, and it was also 15 minutes too long since there were some scenes that drag in the film that did drag in some parts, and it suffers through some pacing issues as a result of this. It also has its share of cliches that you've seen in other historical dramas before, and the ending also felt rushed. But despite that, I actually thought it was a solid film. I was I was invested in the story due to how gripping it felt. The directing was very good. The acting was great. Russell Crowe delivers one of his finest performances yet as Goring. I mean, I hate him because of who he represented, but his performance was so powerful that this is one of those characters you love to hate. Rami Malek, John Slattery, Richard E. Grant, and Michael Shannon are also very good in the film as well. The cinematography was fantastic. It's got solid editing, terrific productive values and costume design. There were actually some moments where they actually showed some real footage that actually I'm not going to give away what happens, but there was some real footage they showed involving the atrocities and the evil shown that actually had me on the edge of it was- that actually had me gasping while also had my stomach churning a bit.
Uh,
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, my yeah. So yeah, it did have my stomach churning a bit, but in a good way. But yeah, overall, I like the film. It's not great. It's definitely cliched. But it is well acted. It is well acted and compelling to the point where I would give this a 7 out of 10 or a B. Again, not a great movie, but it is good.
Next, we have Train Dreams, and the movie about a logger's life during the 20th century America boasts beautiful cinematography and music, as well as solid performances. The first hour I felt rather engaging, but the third act was when it started to lose me a bit with its pacing issues, but then the ending picked things right back up. So, not a great Oscar contender, but one worth watching, seal of approval.
To me, this is one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. I was highly invested in the story due to how well structured and absorbing it felt. Bentley's directing was fantastic, and the screenplay that he and Greg Quaidar wrote for the film is absolutely one of the year's best. Not only due to how well written its dialogue felt and how real and fleshed out the characters felt, but how it had a lot to say when it came to exploring its themes involving grief, trauma, memory, and isolation. The acting was terrific. Joel Edgerton delivers one of his best performances yet as Robert Granier, and that's thanks to how raw and powerful it felt. Felicity Jones, Kerry Condon, Clifton Collins Jr., and William H. Macy are also brilliant in the film. And Will Patton's narrating also added a nice touch too. The score I found to be both haunting and elegant. Not to mention the cinematography in Train Dreams was nothing short of outstanding and one of the best I've seen this entire year. It's very well edited. It's deliberately paced throughout. It's got excellent productive values and costume design, fantastic sound design, and Soren, I have to disagree with you on the third act. I was still invested in the third act, and it also had one of my favorite endings I've seen this entire year. So overall, Train Dreams is one of the most powerful and deeply moving films I've seen this entire year, and it's easily one of the year's best films. Without a doubt, like Frankenstein, I am definitely going to give Train Dreams a 10 out of 10 or an A plus, baby. If you have Netflix, check. If you missed this in theaters and you have Netflix, check this one out. It's one of the best films of the year.
Next up, we have The Running Man, and after a decent, albeit flawed adaptation of Stephen King's novel back in the 80s, Edgar Wright gives it one more go and more than surpasses it. The vision of its dystopian future shines through the production values, and the action is consistently top-notch and kept me on my toes. And the cast is great from Liza Cohen Domingo, Michael Cera, and especially Josh Brolin and Glenn Powell. And the social commentary on the state of life entertainment leads to a ton of twists and turns throughout, especially in the ending. So seek out one of the most underappreciated movies of the year, which I'm giving the seal cinema.
You know what's coming, Soren? You know, you know what I'm about to say. For me, this is one of the most disappointing movies I've seen this entire year. This did not feel like an Edgar Wright movie at all. I mean, yeah, there are some good performances by Glenn Powell, um, Coleman Domingo, and Josh Brolin. It's got it's got a great soundtrack, excellent cinematography, really good production design as well, and some decent visual effects. But otherwise, and very good visual effects. But otherwise, this movie was a mess. The story was a muddled mess. The writing was terrible. It's clumsily, and I was shocked with how, and I was very disappointed in Edgar Wright's directing, since it came up as being nothing more than an over directed mess. The editing was all over the place. The action sequences were shockingly and I was really shocked with how bland the action sequences felt, especially with its excessive editing. It's poorly paced throughout. There was no reason for this movie to be 133 minutes long, especially since there were some scenes that really dragged the film down a bit. Keep it under like 110 minutes or 115. Um, it also has its share of cliches that you've seen in other films before. The tone is all over the place. The satire felt very flat, and the ending felt so underwhelming. So, yeah, overall, the new version of the Running Man, despite some good performances by Glenn Powell and Coleman Domingo and Josh Brolin, this new version of the Running Man is sadly my least favorite movie that Edgar Wright has done so far, since I found it to be nothing more than such a meandering mess. 3 out of 10.
Next up, we have Now You See Me, Now You Don't. And it's been 9 years since this franchise took its last bow, but I guess Lionsgate was so desperate for money after who knows how many flops and bombs. The result is a decent sequel that's everything fans of the franchise have enjoyed. The cast is as charismatic as ever, and the magic tricks and heists are every bit as fun and diverse to watch. Granted, it doesn't really change the game for these movies, it's just more of the same. Also, certain plot threads fell underdeveloped, but it's nevertheless a fun sequel that delivers an adequate experience for fans and casual moviegoers alike, so seal of accuracy.
For me, I was so bored watching this movie. Yeah, the acting is solid, and there's some great chemistry between the leads, and it's got a good musical score and good cinematography, and there are some pretty good action scenes throughout. But the story was a model. But the story was all over the place. The writing was so bad. Like the way the dialogue was written, I could have swore this came out of either Chat GPT or First Draft. It's poorly directed. It's clumsily edited. The pacing was all over the place, and this is the exact same problem I had with the last two Night See Me movies. I don't even feel like the actors are doing any real magic tricks at all. In fact, what I'm looking at is just basically nothing but just obviously bland CGI and editing to make it really look like the actors are doing magic tricks. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real. And my God, the pacing was such a meandering mess. Like, I can't even begin to describe how many times I was bored watching this movie. It also has a share of cliches that you've seen in other films before. The twist, the twist couldn't be any more obvious from the start, and the ending sets it all up for a sequel. Which, God help me, God help me with this. Yeah, overall, I really did not like this movie at all. 3 out of 10. And sadly, the next film I saw isn't even better either. Keeper. Okay, so if you don't know what Keeper is, it follows a couple spending their anniversary weekend at a secluded cabin in the woods where strange things begin occurring, and the cabin's dark secrets are revealed. Okay, okay, right off the bat, let me just say this right now. I fucking loved Longlegs. It was one of the best movies I saw last year, and I really enjoyed the director's previous film, which was The Monkey, even despite some flaws that it had. So I was curious to see how Keeper was gonna land, was gonna fare compared to this, and compared to those two. Unfortunately, this is his worst movie so far. Now there are some good things in it, like the acting is solid, the score is haunting, the cinematography was brilliant, and it's got some tension filled, and the horror, and there are some terrifying and creepy moments in some spots, but unfortunately this movie was a mess. From its story to its from its bland story to the writing being an absolute joke. Like, I'm not kidding. The writing was absolutely atrocious. Like, characters would say there were some certain lines of dialogue the characters would say where I could have swore this was written as a first draft. And Oscar Perkins really tries his best, but unfortunately, his directing was saddled with such a garbage script. The editing was all over the place. The pacing was a sluggish mess. It's filled with cliches that you've seen in other films before. The reveal made no sense whatsoever. I'm not going to spoil what happens in case you're interested in seeing it, but the way it was revealed made no sense, and the ending felt so underwhelming. So, yeah, overall, Keeper is by far my least favorite movie that Oscar Perkins has done. Since I found this movie to be incohesive and just not that like unsettling in my opinion. So 3 out of 10.
Next up, we have Jay Kelly. And this seemed like not only another win for Noah Baumbach, but also a chance for Adam Sandler to finally get an Oscar nomination. Unfortunately, despite being well acted by Alexa Sandler, George Clooney, and Laura Dern, there's a nice cinematography and music, and the first 15 minutes especially seemed promising. Story itself seemed cliched with its themes of self-reflection of one's career and the relationship pretty half-baked. And it's also pretty predictable at times, so certainly not bad, but certainly underwhelming as all hell. Seal of accuracy.
I don't agree with it being predictable, Soren. I actually really like this film. Now, yes, the pacing. Now, yes, there are some pacing issues in some spots, and some of the editing choices did feel a bit uneven at times. But the story, I found I was highly invested in the story due to how engaging it felt. The writing by Noah Baumbach was very good, especially with the way he tackled the themes involving the main theme involving self discovery. It's very well directed by Noah Baumbach. The acting was terrific. George Clooney was brilliant as Jay Kelly, but it's Adam Sandler that really delivers one of his best performances yet as Ron. Like he is he was snubbed for an Oscar nomination for Uncut Gems unfairly, and I really feel like now he really could like I really feel like this could be his year to be nominated for an Oscar. He was that good. Laura Dern and Billy Crudup are also brilliant in the film as well. The score was brilliant. The cinematography was fantastic. It's also very funny in some parts, and I found the ending to be really enjoyable. And I really enjoyed the ending as well. So overall, I really like this. I really like Jay Kelly. 8 out of 10 or B plus. If you have Netflix, check this out.
Finally, we get to Sentimental Value,
Yes.
and Joaquin Trier's latest follows the drama that occurs when a filmmaker reunites with his two daughters while scouting for his latest film. The theme of setting up certain priorities for art is explored rather well thanks to a brilliant screenplay, and it's also well shot with a solid score. The great performances feel real, especially Stellan Skarsgård in one of his best performances. My only issue is the editing can be a tad frantic at times, like I could have used a bit more on certain scenes, but it's otherwise a compelling drama and one of the better dramas of the year. Seal of approval.
This is absolutely one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. Everything about this movie was near perfect from start to finish. Like from its engaging story to excellent directing to the writing feeling very well done, especially with how it covers its themes involving history, memory, expression, art, and trauma. The acting was terrific. Everybody in the film gives out a great performance. Re, Renette Renziv was brilliant as Nora. Stellan Skarsgård, on the other hand, is my pick to win Best Supporting Actor. He was so good as Gustav Borg, a celebrated film director, and Norris and Agnes's father. And that's thanks to how raw and compelling his performance felt. And Elle Fanning was fantastic as Rachel Kemp. The score was, the cinematography was fantastic. The soundtrack was brilliant. It's very well edited throughout. It's deliberately paced throughout too. It also has its funny moments in it too, and let me tell you, it also has one of the best endings I've seen this entire year. I love this movie. I love Sentimental Value. It is hands down one of the most compelling and deeply moving films I've seen this entire year. And without a doubt, I am absolutely going to give Sentimental Value, like Frankenstein and Train Dreams, a 10 out of 10 or an A plus, baby. If it's at a theater near you, if it's still at a theater near you, check this one out. It's one of the year's best films.
Now we end up with the pick and dog of the show. As for the dog of the show, apparently it's been kind of a tradition to make it a shitty Christmas movie around this time of year, so why not talk about another one this year? Actually, scratch that. Make that two shitty Christmas movies because they honestly suffer from the same problems. Those being 2004's Christmas of the Cranks and 2006's Deck the Halls.
Oh god, those films.
These two movies honestly had fun concepts, one being about the ramifications of foregoing the traditional Christmas traditions, and the other about the battle of wits on making the best decorated house of the holidays. Unfortunately, both are so mean spirited for their own good. In spite of the actors' best efforts from Tim Allen and Jamie Curtis to Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick, their characters are just so hard to root for that I couldn't even sympathize with either cast, like the end of the movie each movie wants me to. They both suffer from implausible writing and little to no laughs, and there's a reason why neither film is getting 24-hour marathons on TNT anytime soon. So that's why those movies, like Eight Crazy Nights, Surviving Christmas, and Nutcracker 3D before it, are among the worst holiday movies ever made.
Okay, well, my dog is probably not as bad as yours, but it's certainly pretty bad. It's certainly pretty bad, and this is probably going to be one of my most controversial picks, since I know there are fans of this movie. I could not stand this one, and it's the live action version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I honestly have a soft spot for it, but A, I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't like it, and B, it's nowhere near as good as the animated one.
Okay, here's what I'll say about the film. Jim Carrey was brilliant in this movie. Was brilliant as the Grinch, and the actress that played Cindy Lou Who was brilliant too. And the makeup on they did on the Grinch was brilliant, and it's got brilliant production design and a really good musical score by James Horner. Unfortunately, this movie was so bad. Like I didn't like this movie when I first saw it as a kid, and watching it again as an adult, I forgot how unpleasant this was to sit through. Like, like, my God, it's like I forgot how unpleasant this was. Like, first of all, first of all, I I found the Grinch's reasoning for hating Christmas to be pretty weak in my opinion, if I'm going to be honest. And another problem that the jokes are beyond crude and idiotic. Like especially just one scene where I could have sworn like is this movie even for kids or what? And again, I don't do that. It's a kids movie like excuse like fuck that shit. But still, so like there were some jokes that were so crude that I'm wondering who was this movie even for? Like how about a mayor like trying kissing a dog's anus and then like the Grinch looking like what and then the Grinch like all of a sudden like what looks like he's like has his face on Martha May's on boobs. Like like Jesus, the writing was just so bad. And the makeup on the Who's, oh, like
Why didn't they just make them look like normal people?
seriously, that is one of the biggest miscalculations I've ever seen in a movie. Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, but I hated this movie. I really hated this one. I didn't like it when I saw it as a kid, and I certainly hated this movie as an adult. It's not just one of the worst Christmas movies I've ever seen. It's one of Ron Howard's worst movies. And yes, I'm sorry to those I'm breaking the hearts to, but the Grinch 2000 live action version is my dog of the show. I'm sorry, but I really could not stand this movie.
As for my pick of the show, I'm gonna talk about a film by the late Rob Reiner and arguably his best, The Princess Bride. Based on the screenwriter's own book, this movie is both a satirical take on old school fantasy films and also a compelling romance itself, featuring career making performances from the likes of Carrie Elways, Robin Wright, Mary Patinkin, and Andre the Giant, as well as soul stirring cameos from Billy Crystal, Peter Cook, and others. This movie has everything: fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles, and the like. I know I'm just quoting the movie verbatim, but it's true. It's the most famous film by Rob Reiner, and watching it, you can easily see why. And before you get to your pick, I just want to say, a couple of years ago, my aunt went to this book reading of this Carol Elway's book about the making of this film, and she asked Carol Elways to sign this book, and as you can see here,
Wow, wow, that's amazing.
indeed.
It's amazing. All right, my my pick in honor of Rob Reiner is the movie I just rewatched today, and it's one of the best adaptations based on Stephen King's book I've ever seen. Stand by Me. This was a Not only is this one of the best Stephen King film adaptations based on Stephen King's material I've ever seen, it's one of the best coming of age films I've seen in general too. This is a deeply moving portrait of lost nostalgia and the inevitable patches of time. It features some brilliant performances by Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell, as well as great chemistry by the four main leads, as well as wonderful directing by Rob Reiner, terrific writing, excellent story, wonderful soundtrack, excellent cinematography, terrific um, great editing, excellent, excellent pacing, and a wonderful ending. So, yeah, Stand by Me. I highly recommend this one for those who have not seen it. It is my pick of the show. And let me just say this before we wrap this up. Let me just say this right now. Rob Reiner, Rob Reiner, you were one great director, and and I'm s- and I'm sorry that you and your wife were murdered by your son. It's just it's just terrible. It's just terrible that this even happened. Yeah, Rob. So rest in peace to both Rob Reiner and rest in peace to Rob Reiner and rest in peace to his wife too. Yeah, his wife named Michelle Singer. I'm yeah, Michelle Singer Reiner. Rest in peace to you guys. Thanks for everything you've done. So that'll do it for this podcast. I know this was shorter compared to the others, but with a lot of stuff I had on my mind, I wish I that's why we had to finish. That's why it's been this podcast is short. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching tonight's podcast. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you guys did too. Be sure to subscribe to Søren the FilmBrony on his YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Give him the love he absolutely deserves. And check out his other podcast that he's in too, called the Popcorn Panel Podcast. Even despite it being on hiatus for a little bit, the link is also in the description below. And one last thing too before we end the show too. Um, I just want to say this to everyone, because of how much the year really was a train wreck, and how much we need happiness in our lives. All I can say is take good care of yourself. Your mental health is very important. And best of all, if you don't think that you are important, you are. You're you're special for who you are. And let's not forget that you matter. You matter for who you are. And don't forget that. So yeah, we'll be live for episode 66 of the FilmBrony podcast. Hopefully by New Year's Eve. But until then, until we meet again for episode 66, hopefully on New Year's Eve, I'm gonna end it like I usually end it. Thanks for watching tonight's podcast, and we will see you all again next time. And as always, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye.